Good evening, Ghana, and welcome to this evening's edition of Sports Night, live here on Joy Sports and Multi TV. My name is Kwame Dwomoh. Now, this evening, we have a gentleman who once contested for the leadership of the Ghana Football Association. He has very strong views on the way our football should be run and how our clubs should be managed. He was formerly the CEO of Accra Hearts of Oak as well, and I'm sure you know who we're talking about right now. But you'll get to know a lot more about him when we come back from this break. We're back from the break, and I'm excited to have Mr. Vincent Suwa Odote as my guest for the show this evening. He's been on and off the football scene for some time. Maybe on the show this evening, we'll get to know what exactly he's been doing and what he has been up to. Sir, it's been a long while we saw you anywhere closer to us. Where have you been hiding?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think for a year now, I've taken a sabbatical, a self-imposed sabbatical from football to develop my Vilex brand, but at the same time keeping tabs on football issues and the goings in the football, the Black Stars, what's going on in the domestic game. So although physically I've been absent, I still keep a tab on what's going on in football, because once a football person, you're always a football person.
And how do you marry the two?
Well, since last year, since I've been out of operational management, 99% of my time has been for my private business. So I'm sure, but in the past, it wasn't easy, but I think both of them generated a lot of passion in me, and both of them excited me, because both my private business and football offered an opportunity to build a brand, to create a sustainable product. So that kept me going. The fact that I want to do something that will be sustainably competitive and at the club level, and also for the private life, those two things kept me going, and I really enjoy doing them both.
For the time that you were pretty much a very familiar face on the Ghanaian football scene, you were known for your very strong views on how things should be done, and not just how they should be done, but how you thought that along certain lines or along certain models, we were going to get the very best out of these models. You had your own brush-ups with people who do matter in our game, but we're going to come to that pretty shortly. How did you get into football?
I think I got into football by default. Of course, during my time in Legon, I've been a gatekeeper for Hearts of Oak. I remember Neil and Van der Poel used to take us to the stadium to man the gates for Hearts of Oak from campus. Then after a while, when the football administration was transiting from the government control to what I'll call the self-government, during that time, I thought that the opportunity was there to allow people to independently bring their skills to come and bear onto football. This is the time that football will love for football people. This is a time that football it will be ripe for modern corporate practices. So at the same time, too, there was opportunity for a new leadership, because then the government had gone in. So that was when I first came in to try to contest Mr. Nyantichi for the first time. So that's how I really got my interest in football. I thought the time was right for football to really be truly independent, for people to be given the freedom to develop whatever interests and capacities they have to bring to bear onto football. And so that was what drove me into football at that time. Then, of course, when it didn't happen, I got a chance to manage Hearts of Oak, and then the rest is history.
Talking about Accra Hearts of Oak, you just mentioned here that during your days at the University of Ghana, your love and your passion for the sport clearly got you to the stadium on a couple of occasions. Looking at yourself in Accra Hearts of Oak, at the time when you were a student, compared to the time where you had the opportunity to run the affairs of the club, you were still pretty young at the time. I recall you were about 36, 37.
Yes.
And for a club with such tradition, and even in our parts, it wasn't very normal, if you like, for the younger generation to be given that kind of opportunity. How did that come about?
I think that when you look back, at that time, Hearts of Oak was under so much environmental pressure, what external pressures from the football, where what I'll call their peers, their mates, like the Harleys, the Zamaleks, the Esperances, were moving very far. They were dominating Africa. So at that time, Hearts of Oak was more or less at a crossroads. between the social concept of football and the modern business competitive practice of football. So my views during the time of the FA elections got the House board to really zoom in on me to get me to
and
come
what
back
were
to
these views?
Sorry?
What were these views?
The views were that football is a business. The decisions must be driven by business models. The practices must be driven by business and accepted modern models. And that Ghana football could be sustainably competitive by using very codified, world best practices, world verifiable, very professional setups, and that football can be profitable and people can have a career in football just like other countries. Those were the views that brought me into Hearts of Oak.
I know you spent quite a number of your adult life as well living in Europe, and maybe you'd come in with all these, fantastic ideas and fantastic models. But again, you look at the, where you came from and how things were being done in here. In those days, I mean, saying all the things that you're telling me at this point would sound like what kinds of music in someone's ears. Running our clubs in those times was more of having rich and filthy businessmen who could put some money around, and that was just about it.
Definitely. I agree with you. That's why at that time, I recall when one of my meetings, I said I believe that individuals should stop financing the club. Some board members,
if you have deep pockets.
My very good friends at that time took offense. They thought it was very insulting. Now look, that's the way it's been done. But it was not going for it. It was not sustainably competitive. You cannot continue to do that because the challenges, the budget, and the operations that you do will definitely outrun any individual or group of individuals who are running it just on a social level. I recall that when I joined Hearts of Oak, and I installed a very comprehensive accounting system, financial management tool to the club. And it wasn't appreciated. It took me aback at that time. I mean, I look back at it and I laugh. It took me aback. That's strange because these are the things that you need in a modern game to take effective financial decisions. At the click of a button, you should be able to know where you are, are you in variances, how can you link your strategy with the operations and things like that. So at that time, it was very difficult. That was what actually led to my exit from Hearts of Oak. I mean, I can recall how at that time I realized that the only way we can make money is to leverage the brand. Leverage the brand in the sense that the traditional sources, which I thought were not sustainable, we need to develop the brand so the brand will generate money. That led me to negotiate with MTN a $1.5 million agreement, which I thought was the way forward because that's money generated by the club. That's supposed to be generated by the club. So that was, to me, that was a very good start. But at that time, and even to now, there are very few people, only people in football see that this is the way forward. We continue to labor on how to rebrand the domestic game. We continue to labor and to play politics with how to ensure that wherever we have achieved, both at the domestic and Black Stars, we take the decisions that will make us remain there. So it was not only 5, 7, 8 years ago, it still exists by and large as to the kind of things that should drive football.
Is it a case of how you intended to go about all these fantastic plans that you had at the time, or is it that the people that you were even going to work with in the first place didn't understand the concept that you were bringing into the administration of the club?
I think that it wasn't peculiar to Hearts of Oak alone. I think it's a Ghanaian football thing as to whether. Because, you see, I believe that leadership, the mindset of leadership is key in every organization.
Sure.
It's key. What are the value system of the leadership? How do leadership see things? How do things must be done? What are the things that would drive change? And with those change, what would they lead to? The football community, by and large, haven't really addressed their minds to that kind of systems. We still believe that 3 points at the end of Sundays, that is what matters.
For a lot of people, yes.
Yeah, that's it. Whether you have a model, once you get a 3 points, whether you win it by hook or crook, or any means necessary, that is what. We don't see that there are people whose life depends on football. the people who work for us, they have a future.
You think so?
Yeah, definitely, because they don't see that the people who put their money in must make a return, but they have alternative sources. We don't see that the people who want to use football as a platform to advertise, to communicate their brand, have other alternatives to advertise. We don't see. I mean, we don't see those things, and so as I said, coming back to your question, it's a bit of both. Where I mean, I was taken aback that people don't see that, but by and large, I believe that the minds and the minds and the whole industry today are still not ready for such things.
Vincent, I wanted to find out from you. I mean, making my way to Fire Avenue here in Accra, I mean, I can confidently say there's a building that represents Accra Hearts of Oak that serves as your club secretariat. So at least on that score, you could say administratively things were being done in a certain way. I can say the same thing for maybe an Ash Gold. I can say the same thing for Kumasi Asante Kotoko. But most of our clubs in here in Ghana are run from the offices and private homes of people, car booths and all. So that when you are coming down with all these phenomenal ideas and how these things would, permeate into club administration in Ghana, there was always a chance that in as much as you had all those brilliant ideas, you're going to be in conflict with so many people who just didn't understand your way of doing things.
Well, I think that you're right, but luckily it's not only me who's saying that. At the moment, I mean, it's something that some of us have championed, and thankfully, I think last year at the Congress, the FA adopted this. FIFA realized that, the CAF realized that they came up with what they call the club licensing, which will set out basic administrative requirements, infrastructure requirements, technical requirements, similar to, the way modern businesses must run. There must be certain basic things you must have in terms of administration, in terms of fiscal infrastructure, in terms of technical, before you can compete in CAF organized competition. You see, sometimes when we come to such things, it's very difficult for me to hold back, because those of us who understand competitive strategy, these things are what weakens the domestic league. Because, one, where CAF has made it compulsory, you are not even doing it. When everyone else, your competitors on the African continents, have it, how can you differentiate your football from them? How can you make you superior? That's why I differ with the leadership of football. Here we are, the basic thing.
You think they are not smart enough to know this?
Well, I wouldn't want to use the word smart as of known. The point is that,
for want of a better expression.
No, yeah. I mean, I don't want. Yeah, that's no. Not that you're not smart, but these are the things that bother me, and these are the things, to me, leadership should be thinking about.
Maybe we are just slow to changes.
I mean, but the more you tardy over making a change, the poor man who puts his money in the football in Zwarungu is suffering. It's not benefiting. But the standards are low. Because we don't have this basic administrative structure, anybody and everybody think they can go into football. So when everybody thinks they can go into football, when some of us come across and speak like that, it makes, no, what are you talking about? And that makes it a lot easier for leadership to continuously let the people with mediocre politics and leadership. So it's not that it's just me. CAF has seen that we must do it. We must do it. Those who must lead football must have certain criteria, qualification. Those, if you want to do football, you must have certain basic physical office. All these things are there. You see, these are the things that have made the North Africans superior.
Are you not surprised that many years after you have left, a club as big as Accra Hearts of Oak, there are still clubs that are run from the boots of individuals?
No, I'm not.
Even in the elite division?
No, I'm not surprised. I wouldn't say boots, car boots. I haven't heard that for a while. But even the basic standard that must be met, I'm not surprised. Because leadership don't want to drive it. And leadership don't see that these are the things, the necessary conditions we need to put in, can bring into our football. Otherwise, we'll not get sponsors. Otherwise, standards will not come up. Otherwise, players will leave. You see, we must, as a matter of necessity, position ourselves not to lose players to countries like Cyprus, to Israel, to Kyrgyzstan,
Well, it's been
Afghanistan.
happening.
That's what we must. And you see, what is the model? What business model are we running in football? We have none.
Well, not that I have seen.
No, I'm telling you, we have none. We have a document that's more of administrative and hygienic changes, off-the-shelf changes about structure. Yeah, we need the District Football Association. We did it. These are necessary. They are so important. But as I have explained to you, Cape Verde has it. Zambia has it.
It's a tiny country.
500,000 Zambia
people.
has it. South Tome and Principe, they have it.
The numbers are manageable in
But
there.
the point I'm trying to make is that to be sustainably competitive, you need a mindset like the English people. Last week, they are trying to change the structure of
Mindsets develop over time.
That's, of course, I agree with you. Mindset develop over time, but you need a leadership, not just one person, but a group of people with that vision to carry people to change the culture, to change the mindset. Somebody someone with a far vision, with a higher understanding of what will drive and bring value lower down there. But I agree with you. If to change mindset, it takes time to change mindset. It takes years. But it needs somebody, a group of people with a leadership that will have that mindset. I'll say, hold on a second. We need to draw a line in the sand today. What we need to do is to make us superior through capacity and competitive procedure. What we need to do is to make sure that we retain players in our league. We don't lose players to Cyprus, where they get paid £1,000 a month, and we lose them. What we need to do
You're
is
paying some clubs players under $100 a month.
A lot
and if
of-
they have
a
the
lot of-
opportunity to go to the Cyprus for $1,000, makes sense.
Yes, but I can tell you that if we manage things properly, over time, we'll be able to pay that kind of money.
We'll be doing a lot more on the bit on management, but let's still just finish up with your time at Accra Hearts of Oak.
Okay.
In view of all these laudable ideas, there were a lot of bickerings.
Yes.
There were a lot of things that we heard. As to whether they're true or otherwise, obviously, you and whoever was there at the time would have your own version of events. But somewhere along the line, you probably felt you had had enough and you had to go.
Yes, definitely. Before, I think now I believe that the club is it's a really, really good state with Togbe Afede and Neil Armstrong. I believe that they are taking the right decisions, which will ensure the long-term sustainable and competitiveness of Accra Hearts of Oak. They understand, both of them have the same, there's a congruence of vision and thought. They know what to do. They know that you remain competitive by doing certain things over a period of time. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case in my time. So I felt that instead of hitting my head against a brick wall, I need to move on. Because
Do you regret that?
no, not at all. I'm very happy that today, I mean, you introduced me as someone who stuck to his principle, has strong views. Yes, because definitely there was no point that I thought that the kind of alternative path that I could have taken would have led to the success of the club. And time I've been vindicated. Looking back, the last time Hearts of Oak won the league was the year that me and Costa Papic and Samakwe, we did a recruitment and we left. Since then, they've not won the league. And then, so looking back, no, I really don't regret that. The changes that we need in football need a tunnel vision, a blinkered vision about the way to go. Just as Adam Crozier did with England when he had all the opposition. I've not had a chance, but I'm glad I stuck to my principles, and that I'm glad that today.
Very young man at the time, securing sponsorship in the region of over $1 million.
Yes.
It was just too big for some of us to
Yes.
even believe at the time. Knowing very well the kind of individuals that had been running the club all these years, who, with all due respect to them, couldn't manage to do anything close to that amount. Maybe they also had their own way of doing things, but don't you think that having done something as big and as unprecedented as that, there was always a way, there was always a chance that if you had stayed a little longer, you could have succeeded with all the big and huge plans that you had at the time.
And let me repeat that that size of squad has never been in the history of Ghana football, and to date, it's never been matched by any club, and I'm very proud of that. Let me put that, I did that with Mr. Steve Mawenyaga and Dale Armstrong.
Who is he?
I think it's around his place, no more in football. Yeah. There were certain things that I could not just, that I found unacceptable and unacceptable. Don't let me go further. That made me take a decision.
Like what?
One, that effort was not appreciated at all. And there were certain circumstances surrounding when it came to the signing of that agreement and outdooring of the agreement. There are things that happened that really hurt me. That made me feel that there are people who thought that it is what they say and what they do matter more than any other thing. And those are the principles I didn't believe in, and I could not support. So I felt that, and you see, one thing that people didn't know, that amount of money, the cash component of that agreement, for the first time ever, and it's never been repeated in Ghana, 50% of that sponsorship was paid in cash upfront. 50% of that, the cash component of the thing was paid upfront in cash. Never happened, and since I left, it's never happened in football, because I knew why we did that, and I thought that, well, definitely looking at what I've seen and what I know. I mean, it's better I take a step away from that, because I don't think the direction the things were going was the right direction, and so that's why I walked away. There were internal things I don't want to come up, but
of course,
yes,
that's understandable.
Yeah, that's why I walked away.
He walked away. Some said he took a bow. You can call it what you want, but we'll be back after this break. How the general club structure in Ghana should be. So I just want us to focus a bit more on that. Again, even if you look at, club administration here after quite a number of years. I mean, I'm told that the first football club here was formed in 1903 called Excelsior. So we're looking at a 110-year of football history. And it's still very sad for me that, traveling around town and looking at even clubs who play in the elite division, we still go about doing business pretty much unprofessionally than we think we should be doing, especially in very professional times like this. What has changed that you're happy about?
I think that, as I said earlier, administratively, I think this administration led by Mr. Nyantechi have tried to bring some changes in terms of, like, for example, making sure that in the past, the people didn't have their names and the jerseys were not proper. There were issues regarding apparel. Now, recently, things have improved. Security has improved. I mean, the way this year I've seen that the scheduling of the league has improved. And for the first time, I think a software has been used to schedule the league. For the first time ever. This is something we spoke about 6-7 years ago. But at least some of those basic administrative things, to be honest with you, are changing, and I think it's a step in the right direction. But the real strategic policies, you see, what you must remember is that these football clubs are in the business of association football. They play by they operate. They are not like multimedia, where you can do what you want, of course, within the laws of the country. But every Sunday, each club must play against the other. There are certain rules, there are certain things you must do. So their operations, to some extent, are determined and defined by the regulator. Right? But, of course, there's also room for them as separate legal entities to also do things to impact upon their success and their fortunes. Okay? So the administrative things are necessary. But what is lacking, and the reason why football has not made the bodily shift, the paradigm shift, is that the regulator and leadership has failed to fashion out. There's a gap in policy that will let people, that will impact professionally on the participants on the association. That is why you still see people behaving amateur. You see, at the, if the bar to entry into football administration is very low.
What is your definition of low?
When people, the rich man in the village, put money into football, he's putting his life savings to some sort of risk. The art and the principles of managing this risk are something that you must be trained in, something that is a know-how that you must have.
He could have the funds. It's all about getting the right people.
That's the point I'm saying. He brings the fans. The people who administer it must have certain basic know-how. But if anybody at all, whether you have that know-how or not, could be allowed to do such things, on their own, they don't appreciate. Like, let me give you a clear example. Like, do like something like Dr. K.K. Sapon. When Dr. K.K. Sapon managed Kotoko, the very basic club licensing regime that we wanted, he exceeded it on his own. Because from where he was coming from, he already knew that these are the basic things that you need to develop the game. Mm-hmm. Let's take the reverse, or somebody who comes from opposite the background of K.K. Sapon, by still managing their football club. He doesn't know these things. So if the regulator or the association has a policy that will ensure that, I'm not saying we should bring in everybody like K.K. Sapon. We can't get everyone like him. They are too extreme. But there must be a certain basic route that you can enter. You realize that some clubs on their own, like what Toby Apeda and the Lamstone are doing at House of Folk, they are not being forced to do it. But every club must be forced to do it, to ensure that a certain basic minimum standard is attained. That's why you see some clubs, apart from the 3 points, whether they run an office, which is open, proper bookkeeping, it doesn't bother them. Because the leadership don't see the need for that.
They say that looking at our clubs and how they operate, individually they all have their own ambitions, so that the ambitions telling the way they do their things. I wouldn't want to mention specific clubs, but when you're talking of, let's say, winning league championships in the country, even before the league season starts, you're looking at certain clubs. When it comes to clubs that are prepared to let players go to Vietnam or Thailand, we know these clubs. When it comes to clubs who are prepared to sell their players at any rate at any time, we know them. So that based on these ambitions, it's understandable how and why we have certain kinds of people running these clubs.
Some ambitions are not really realistic ambitions, and some ambitions at a club level impact negatively on the whole football brand, on domestic football brand. Let me give you an example. We should never compare ourselves to the EPL, and I wouldn't do that. Because as a strategist, as a business strategist, I know which position or which level we can go. We can never, even Europeans cannot compete with them. But they tell you that you can employ any foreigner, provided the foreigner has played a certain number of matches for his national team. Period. So you, the club, you have a space to operate. But the regulator and the association is telling you something, and which you must move with. This is a classic example of how policies change paradigms and change the quality and the standard of play. I'm not saying we should do that exactly. But I want to give you an example because of what you said. Clubs have ambitions. At the beginning of the season, each club has what they want to do. When I went to King Faisal, I wanted to win the league. Because I believe that we can do it. In my first year, we came very close to doing that.
There was a standard too high, I think.
Yes, but the first year, we came very close to doing that. We were 2 matches away from winning the league. Because before the King Faisal had been a top 4 club. You understand? Hearts of Oak must dominate Africa. It's possible. And that needs to be done over a period of time.
Right.
Things are put right over a period of time. You understand? So, both the association and the individual clubs have a role to play. Good policy formulation will impact on the clubs. And once it impacts on the club in terms of human resource and people who represent club level, that will in turn also impact on the policy formulation at by the regulator. So they both work hand in hand. That's the way I see sport.
Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a situation where these laudable ideas are either relegated to the background or they are not projected in the way that we would want to see it being projected. So that if you look at the basic regulation with the club licenses system, that says that maybe the CEO should have a certain educational background. They have their reasons why they would want the CEO, someone like the CEO who runs the club on a day-to-day basis, would need a certain background so that that will trickle down into the way the clubs are run.
Yes.
I'm not in a position to tell what the educational issues with our clubs are at the moment and the standards with which these individuals have gotten. But is it something that should be managed in a certain way? Because if you're calling for a certain standard, knowing where we are at the moment, it might take a little more, years for that to be implemented.
I agree, but you must take a bold step. I'll tell the football industry is lagging behind other industries in terms of human resource. That one, I don't think anybody can disagree. I mean, I'll contest anybody on this. That's one of the basic problems that we have. We are not able to attract and compete in terms of the human resource with other industries like banking, like telecommunication, like mining. We are not able to do that, and that is evident in the way the game is going. All these things we are talking here, as we are speaking here now, looking at the image of Ghana, the side, and this, I mean, 21st century in a global world that we are now, we should not be talking. Country of Ghana should not be talking about the certain basic administrative systems in our football clubs. But we are lagging behind. I agree with you, it takes time. But I can tell you that favorable external environment, both domestic and internal, if we take those steps, the curve will be very, very short. Just as Ebert Mensah came within 2 years, it transformed Kotoko, KK Sapa within 2 years. Tell me a pair that came last year. The favorable conditions are there on the domestic and international market. There are things you can do which very quickly can turn the fortunes and can make you become attractive. Unfortunately, the center, the regulator, is not doing that. That is why we have issues with non-competitive in terms of attracting and retaining quality human resource, not really being able to foresee and see things which which needs to be done. To me, this is the crux of the matter.
To him, that is the crux of the matter. We'll take a final break, and when we come back, we'll look at our issues concerning sponsorship, branding of our game, and of course, his views on how far the national team have come these days. Over the program, Mr. Vincent Suwo-Odote is my guest on the show. Vincent, you have a very strong marketing background, I am told. We're struggling with marketing of our game. We're struggling with sponsorship. I'm not too sure if branding is at the level that you would love to see as well. And it's obvious that it's having an impact on our game.
I think not at all. We haven't developed the brands. We haven't made the brand strong enough. The football has credibility issues. It had a bad brand image with both our customers, two of our key customers, as our fans and our sponsors. And we haven't taken the right steps to sustain the levels that we reached from 2006 when the Black Stars first went into, well, we qualified for the World Cup, where there was so much goodwill. Instead of channeling that goodwill and the resources that came up to build the brand and build a domestic thing, we failed to do that. You see, any good marketer will tell you that in the extreme sense of marketing, advertisements is superfluous because the product must sell itself. Because if the product is designed with the people in mind and with the people, patronage becomes, you can take patronage for granted.
The Ghana Premier League is supposed to be our biggest football franchise, and that should, have a certain correlation or relation with our national football team. You look at the two products now; they are
They are-
worlds
they are-
apart.
they are two. There's no linkage between the Premier League and the Black
It's because
Stars.
most of our national team players don't come from our local clubs.
Definitely, that should tell you that the success of the Black Stars is more external than internal. I mean, because there's some exogenous factors that's leading to the success of the Black Stars, not by anything designed by anybody domestically, because there's absolutely no linkage, and then I mean, our customers are rejecting the product. The fans don't go to the stadium. Corporate Ghana don't want to associate themselves with us because the product is not fit for purpose. When we say it's not fit for purpose, people, it's not an offensive language. It's a technical thing that says that football is not providing entertainment. That's, you see, conceptually, football clubs are in the entertainment business. They are not in the football business. They provide entertainment through football for a profit. So the primary objective of the GFA, the primary objective of any club administrator is that we must provide the entertainment. And that must supersede anything. No matter how technical, you see, this is where people must understand the present situation of the Nyantichi-led administration and what is required to be done about football. No matter how technically superb or the hygienic administrative things you do, no matter how well you do them, if the end product does not satisfy the need of the fans, you'll be on a hiding to nothing. That's where strategy comes into play. So people don't understand why sometimes some of us take a different view from what the Nyantichi-led administration is doing. Because the issue about branding goes beyond, I'm not here to lecture about branding, but are the fans emotionally attached? Does the football provide emotional satisfaction as other football products provide? No. Does it provide them with a competitive satisfaction that they will switch their time from some social events to come to the stadium? No. So any policy formulation from the GFA to the third division man playing as Zwarungu, the first consideration must be entertainment. Once you have this mindset, you understand why people don't go to stadium. You understand why you have problems about branding. You understand why we don't have a sponsor. You understand why even when sponsors are coming, they pay us far less than what we must deserve compared to other African countries. It may not necessarily be a technically superior product. No, that's not what we are talking about. It may not be necessarily having a glow project at Pram Pram. It's necessary. But that's not what we are talking about.
What are we talking about?
We are talking about a policy that will make the game entertaining.
Like what?
So, look, I believe that we need a policy that will ensure we retain our stars longer without infringing on their human rights. Right?
I know where you're going.
Yes, because entertainment is a drama. The English call their game it's a drama.
When you're giving them peanuts to stay here?
You've hit the nail right on the head. You must get people who understand that when they sell players, they must invest in capacity. In capacity. In capacity, there's both physical and human resource. That you must make sure that if you don't want to lose a player to Tajikistan, who pays $1,000 a month, you must be able to pay at least $600. But the player knows that when he goes to Tajikistan, he cannot speak the English, he has no family, so if he's taking half of it. So the mindset of leadership is key.
Maybe the strength of our economy might also have a certain issue with that.
Big Bad, we are no different from all the business principles that have been espoused in the world and keep being espousing. Money in any sustainable competitive position, but it's not the key thing. It's leadership, a model. It's leadership, a model. You need money to execute it. But I can tell you that if we have a system that ensures that the people who manage our football at a club level are people at a certain standard, within a short to medium term, I can tell you that we will formulate policies that will not totally solve the problem of entertainment and branding. But I can tell you that you see the signs, as they say in America, you see the green shoots that we are arriving at solving this problem.
Are you seeing any signs as we speak?
No, at the moment I don't see it. I don't see it because, as I've told you earlier on, the kind of levels we were 2006, that we got big sponsorship. We have not channeled whatever goodwill, whatever fiscal resources to building capacity about management of football, to building capacity about brand credibility, to ensure that we remain at that level.
Football is run by the Ghana Football Association.
Yes.
So that looking at the strides that we have made, especially since qualifying for our first World Cup in 2006, yes, you would want to think that the FA will be in a certain capacity to get certain individuals with a certain expertise to push our game in the direction that you're talking about. Why has it been difficult for the FA to get that kind of people to be implementing some of these ideas?
Those of us who study management, they will tell you that there's a cliche that nobody ever got fired for buying an IBM in the 70s. Today, IBM has been taken over. It's leadership, it's mindset. If you study money, it'll tell you how Andre Citron developed the Citron brand, and how he destroyed and went bankrupt, and other people came to take over. If you study money, it'll tell you how Marks and Spencer had problems. It'll tell you how Southwest Airlines and
everyone has had a problem.
Definitely.
How they've dealt with the problem.
That is the key. We have not been able to build upon the successes that we have to the extent that we are not even able to attract half of what we attracted some few years back. People will point to sponsorship fatigue. That is correct. But the countries who have built their brands properly, where industry realized that instead of going to direct sales, direct advertising, instead of going through a radio, they go through the helicopter channel that football provides, a globaler channel, a globaler market, globaler communication platform to reach their clients. We have not thought about football in that way. That is the key problem.
What do you make of the situation where our lead sponsor of our local league is almost always defaulting when it comes to payments of its, amounts that they have to pay to clubs, and the fact that we've sold our rights to a broadcast holder and we can't even get to know the figures that are being agreed upon?
Well, I don't want to go into the politics of that because everybody knows the relation between me and the FA and the Globe. I don't want to go into that. But if Globe found our football a very credible and unsubstitutable platform to communicate their brand, they will pay their money up front. To them, if we play in an empty stadium, what is the value of their brand on the front of your jersey? Zero. In life, you write your own paycheck. In life,
that's a big one.
You write your own paycheck. How people deal with you depends on you yourself. And that's a lesson the FA must learn. You talk about, I don't even think that the regulator or the association to even fathom a situation where they will sign a sponsorship deal and they think they should not disclose it to the members who own the FA.
Well, they say the members know.
Well, if the members know, that's fine. If the members know, then other third party, to me, in the modern day, these things, as part of a relationship, all these things go to give the brand credibility issues. Because if another sponsor or corporate guarantor was sitting somewhere and say, hold on a second, when we signed an agreement with MTN, if you have engaged in sponsorship before, you realize that most of the time, the sponsors will even want you to go and broadcast the headline amount, which may not always be cash.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah, of course. For very obvious reasons. So why would, in this instance, the sponsor don't want any full disclosure? And why didn't our representative ask for that? What's the secret about that? See, it all boils down to the issues we talk about: human resource, about leadership building capacity, about the club, so that things could move in a certain direction. At the moment, that is not forthcoming. That is why a regulator or an association could get away with such things. But I believe that, if things were different, maybe I don't think the regulator or the association would even think anywhere of
So we're running out of time. Finally, I just want us to touch our base with our national team. In the face of all the challenges that the local game is facing, it looks like the national teams just keeps soaring and soaring. We are almost there as far as qualification to a third World Cup is concerned. The FA may not be doing things or getting things right with our local game, but when it comes to the Black Stars, it looks like they are getting things done and done well. Oh,
definitely. I think we need to commend Kwesi Appiah and his people, Maxwell Konedo, and here recently, Professor Minta. We need to commend the FA. Mr. Nyantichi, he's the chairman of the Black Stars Management Committee, and that he must take the rough with the smooth. Now that we are commending them, when they go and things don't work out well, when people are talking, they shouldn't. The greatest lesson they must learn is that we must learn to manage our stars well. We went to South Africa without our big stars. We saw what happened. There were times between the last World Cup and until last Tuesday when we had problems. Because we have players refusing to join the team. We have players not being managed properly. Football politics must be left out of these Black Stars. We must make sure that we assemble all our Arsenals, all our big players, to ensure that we support Kwesi Appiah and his people when they go to the World Cup, so that we'll see whether they can go further than any other African country. But they've done well, and I think they need commendation. But then again, those of us who think about sustainability, we must look at what the drivers of this success. What is driving this success? Are they sustainable? Are they self-made? Are they external to us? If they are external to us, what can we learn from that? Because since England qualified for the World Cup, those of you who like football, they are debating how to restructure their league, even in the English Premier League, because they have the reverse of what we have. They have a fantastic league, but their national team
is suffering.
And even them are thinking of fixing it. What about us? If even England, with all the success, are thinking of fixing their problem. And when you read the literature, and now they form a 10-man committee to restructure their domestic football to see how it can impact. And there are so many suggestions about academies, how to scrap academies, how to let academies play competition, so that because they realize that they are building the brand for other nations
to benefit. I'm sure Mr. Greg Dyke and his team would find its own antidote to it. Is there a chance we could see you back in club or football management anytime soon?
As I've said, I'm a sports person. I love sport. A lot of these things that I bring to football are things I've learned about Formula One, especially. I love Formula One. I love golf. And I love cricket. And you remember when I used to live in England, England never won any cricket match. They were rubbish. Absolutely rubbish. In the early 90s. But now they are number one ranked. They are the number one ranked in it. Look at Formula One, how it has transformed from a garage sport into one of the biggest brands. People will say, no, you are thinking too far. I can tell you that the considerations that face English football is not different from that face your watches outside this. If you understand what business management is and how to build brand, they are not different. The size and the size and maybe the complexities will be different, but the basic underlying principle, that is for the English FA to think and change their structure, is the same that must get us as Ghana football, and for the FA to look at our football. They are not different.
I want us to end on that note with a quote you passed earlier on concerning individuals paying themselves.
In life, you write your own paycheck. Wherever you work, how much you must be paid. If Hearts of Oak wants $1 billion sponsorship, if Ghana football wants a trillion sponsorship, they have to write that check themselves. Nobody will write it for them.
On that note, we draw the curtains on this evening's edition of the show. In life, you write your own paycheck. Mr. Vincent Soa Odote has been our guest. Bye-bye.
Thank you.